Hey everyone, welcome back.
It's great to be here.
We're all on this journey of personal and professional growth, always trying to, make better decisions.
Hmm.
But sometimes our brains, well, they have these shortcuts built in, these biases that can trip us up.
It's true. Those biases, they're kind of like mental autopilot.
Hmm.
They help us make quick decisions in a busy world,
Right.
but they don't always lead to the best outcomes.
Especially when we're, aiming for growth and improvement.
Exactly.
So let's unpack some of these biases,
Sounds good.
starting with confirmation bias.
Okay.
It's like we're wearing those, rose-colored glasses,
Hmm.
only seeing what confirms what we already believe.
Yeah, we see this a lot, in politics, social media, even in our personal relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
Like imagine you're considering a new job opportunity. Confirmation bias might lead you to just focus on the positives, downplaying any potential drawbacks.
Because you really want that job.
Right, because you're excited about it.
Yeah. And that excitement can cloud your judgment.
Exactly. So how do we avoid this trap?
Well, skepticism is good, but even more important, I think, is actively seeking out different perspectives.
Okay.
So if you're considering that job, talk to people who work there, research the company culture, really dig into both the good and the bad.
So it's about being proactive with the information we're taking in.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's talk about a bias that can really impact our sense of value and worth. Anchoring bias.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we get stuck on the first piece of information we receive.
Yeah, like that first impression really sticks with us.
Right. And it can be hard to shake.
Think about salary negotiations.
Okay.
If an employer gives you a lowball offer first, that number can anchor your expectations,
Mhm.
even if you're worth a lot more.
Wow, that's a good point.
It sets the stage, and it's tough to break free from that initial point.
So I guess it's about being aware of that anchor and doing your research beforehand.
Exactly. Go into those negotiations with data on industry standards, comparable salaries, your own skills and experience.
Don't let that first number define your worth.
This is so relevant as we're navigating our careers.
Absolutely.
Now let's shift to a bias that comes up in our daily lives, even in small decisions. Availability bias.
Yeah.
What is that one all about?
Well, it's our brain's tendency to overestimate the likelihood of things that are easy to remember, often because they're vivid or emotionally charged.
Okay.
And this can lead us to make decisions based on fear rather than facts.
Like if you see a news report about a car accident on a specific road, you might start avoiding that route,
Right.
even if statistically it's no more dangerous than any other road.
Exactly. You're letting that one vivid incident overshadow the reality.
So to combat this, we need to ground our decisions in data and objective information.
Yes. Look at the bigger picture.
This is such a crucial skill to develop for our peace of mind and making sound decisions.
It is.
Okay, so we talked about confirmation bias, anchoring bias, availability bias. Now let's discuss one that can really impact our relationships with other people. Attribution bias.
Okay.
Tell us about that one.
So this is where we judge others harshly for their mistakes, assuming their behavior reflects their character.
Right, but we give ourselves a pass.
Exactly. Blaming outside factors for our own shortcomings.
It's like a double standard.
It is. And it can create conflict and resentment in our relationships.
I'm definitely guilty of this one.
Oh, I think we all are to some extent.
If I forget a deadline, it's because I'm overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
But if a colleague does the same thing, they must be disorganized.
Right. It's easy to jump to conclusions about others.
Yeah.
Instead, try to cultivate empathy. Recognize that everyone makes mistakes. And there are often factors we're not aware of that contribute to those mistakes.
So pause and consider the context.
Right? Maybe they're facing challenges we don't know about. Or maybe they're just human, just like us.
Exactly. We all make mistakes.
We do.
Okay, so now think about those times you've felt pigeonholed or misunderstood because your age, your background, or even how you dress. That's stereotyping bias at play.
It is. We put people into categories based on preconceived notions, often without even realizing we're doing it.
And this bias is so pervasive.
It really is.
And it can really limit opportunities for growth.
Yeah, for both individuals and teams.
Yeah, it's like we're closing ourselves off to unique talents and different perspectives.
Imagine you're leading a team and you dismiss someone's idea just because they're the youngest person in the room.
Right.
You could be missing out on a brilliant solution.
Because you let a stereotype cloud your judgment.
Exactly.
So how do we break free from these stereotypes?
It takes effort, but we can train ourselves to be more aware of our biases and make a choice to see people as individuals, not just representatives of a group.
So instead of relying on assumptions,
Approach each person with curiosity. Get to know their unique stories and experiences.
That's where the real growth happens.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's talk about a bias that can hold us back from reaching our full potential. Overconfidence bias.
Uh-huh.
It's that feeling of knowing more than we actually do.
Yeah, which can lead to some risky decisions.
Think about that time you aced a test without studying much and thought you could do it again and again.
Right. Overconfidence can make us blind to our limitations.
And prevent us from putting in the effort to really excel.
Exactly.
It's like setting ourselves up for disappointment.
Because we're not being realistic.
So how do we avoid falling into that trap?
I think it's about finding a balance between confidence and humility.
Okay.
Be willing to acknowledge your weaknesses. Seek feedback from others. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
So it's about being honest with ourselves.
Yes, and recognizing that we all have areas where we can improve.
And that's okay.
It is. It's all part of growth.
Okay, last one. Let's wrap up this section with a bias that could be detrimental in teams. Groupthink bias.
Okay.
This is where the desire for harmony overrides critical thinking.
And it can lead to some really bad decisions.
Yeah.
Imagine you're in a meeting and everyone seems to agree on a plan, but you have serious reservations.
But you don't want to rock the boat,
Right. Groupthink can make you hesitant to speak up.
even if you know it's a bad idea.
Exactly. And everyone ends up suffering the consequences later.
So how do we create a culture where people feel comfortable speaking up?
It starts with leadership. Leaders need to encourage different viewpoints, encourage debate, and make it safe for people to share their opinions without fear.
It's about psychological safety.
It is, where everyone feels empowered to contribute.
That's a recipe for success.
It is. When everyone's voice is heard, teams can make better, more informed decisions.
This has been such an insightful look at these tricky biases.
You have.
We've learned so much about how they can impact our decisions and relationships.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
What are some key takeaways our listeners can use as they continue on this journey of personal and professional growth?
Well, I think the first takeaway is just being aware of these biases, you know? It's like having a mental flashlight to help you see those hidden patterns in your thinking.
Yeah, it's like shining a light on those automatic responses we have. And then we can choose a different path.
Right. And then the next step is to cultivate some curiosity.
Good.
Instead of assuming you have all the answers, approach situations with the beginner's mind. Be eager to learn and understand other perspectives.
That reminds me of something you said earlier about actively seeking out different points of view. It's so easy to get trapped in our own little bubbles.
It is. We surround ourselves with people who think just like us.
Right. But to really grow, we need to step outside of that.
Absolutely. We need to engage with people who have different opinions, backgrounds, experiences.
So expand our horizons and challenge those assumptions.
Exactly.
Not always easy, but worth it.
It is.
What are some practical tips our listeners can use to mitigate these biases?
One of the most effective strategies, I think, is to slow down your decision-making.
Okay.
Instead of jumping to conclusions or going with your gut, take some time to gather information. Analyze the situation from different angles. Weigh the consequences.
Like hitting the pause button?
Exactly.
Instead of making decisions on autopilot.
Give yourself some space to make more thoughtful choices.
And that's often when those biases sneak in.
They do when we're rushing.
Right.
And along with slowing down, it's important to get feedback from others.
Okay.
You know, trusted friends, colleagues, mentors. They can offer insights that we might miss.
It's like having a personal board of advisors
It is.
to give us some perspective and help us see our blind spots.
Exactly. Sometimes we need that outside perspective to challenge us and help us grow.
Absolutely. Another tool we can use is empathy.
Yes. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. Try to understand their motivations. Consider the factors that might be influencing their behavior.
It's so easy to judge people based on their actions.
It is.
But when we practice empathy, it opens us up to compassion and understanding.
Exactly. Empathy allows us to see beyond our own limited perspective and connect with others on a deeper level.
That's such an important skill.
It is, both personally and professionally.
As we wrap up this discussion, what's one key message you'd like our listeners to take away?
I want them to remember that overcoming biases is a journey, not a destination. It's an ongoing process of self-reflection, learning, and growth.
We're always learning.
We are, and there will be times when we fall back into old patterns.
We're human.
We are. But the key is to be aware, acknowledge our mistakes, and try to do better next time.
Progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
And embracing that growth mindset helps us to be more compassionate with ourselves and with others.
It does, because we all make mistakes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, what are some final words of wisdom you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Be patient with yourself. Overcoming biases takes time and effort. Don't get discouraged if you slip up. Just acknowledge it, learn from it, and keep going.
So progress over perfection.
Yes. And never stop questioning, exploring, and challenging yourself to grow.
That's fantastic advice. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of biases.
It does.
We hope you've learned some valuable insights you can apply to your own lives.
I hope so too.
It's like we're peeling back those layers of our minds, uncovering those hidden biases that we've been talking about.
Yeah, it's a fascinating process.
It really is.
The more we learn about these biases, the more we realize how much they impact our lives.
Oh, absolutely, in every area.
From our relationships to our careers to our well-being.
And the great thing is that by becoming aware of them, we can start making more conscious decisions.
Exactly. We can break free from those automatic reactions.
Yeah, instead of just reacting based on ingrained patterns.
We can actually choose a different path.
It's like we're taking control.
Yes.
Instead of being passengers, we become the drivers of our lives,
I like that analogy.
making choices that align with our values and goals.
Exactly. And as we get better at recognizing and mitigating these biases, we not only improve our own decision-making, but we also contribute to creating a more just and equitable world.
It's like a ripple effect,
It is.
starting with ourselves and extending outward to our relationships, our workplaces, our communities.
It's been shown that when people are more aware of their own biases, they're more likely to challenge prejudice and discrimination.
That's a powerful thought,
It is.
that this exploration of bias isn't just about personal growth. It's about creating a better world for everyone.
I agree. And it starts with each of us making a commitment to keep learning.
To challenge our assumptions and embrace diverse perspectives.
Yeah, that's how we grow.
That's a great way to sum things up.
Thanks.
We've covered so much ground today, from confirmation bias to groupthink and everything in between.
We have. It's been great exploring all these nuances of the human mind.
Well, thank you for being here and sharing your insights.
It's been my pleasure.
Well, folks, that's a wrap on our deep dive into the world of everyday biases.
I hope you enjoyed it.
We hope you learned some valuable things that you can apply to your own lives.
And remember, the journey of self-discovery is ongoing.
It really is.
Keep those minds open, and those heart compassionate, and those biases in check.
Great advice. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.